Chloe, otherwise known as Princess Aspian, and welcome to my channel.
Just be me.
So, I don't really know how to start this video, so I guess we'll just get straight to the point. I have ADHD. Are any of us surprised? No, well actually, I sure was. I was very surprised. A lot of you guys wouldn't be and aren't, because I have had people commenting on my videos since I started this channel saying you need to go and get diagnosed with ADHD because you've got it. I've been diagnosed for quite a few months now, and it's certainly something that I haven't been quiet about. I haven't been trying to hide it by any means. I've made multiple posts on pretty much every single social media platform except for YouTube about it. But I guess I've just never officially come out to YouTube, as it were. I guess because it's something entirely new to me, and when I make my YouTube videos, they're quite long and they're quite lengthy, and I want to make sure that I'm being informative when I'm not crying about One Direction. And while I'm still learning exactly what that means for me and what ADHD is for me and for my brain, I thought it might be a good idea to get a bit of a diagnosis story. I never did a diagnosis story about getting diagnosed as autistic because I got diagnosed when I was 12. I started my channel when I was 18, so it just never really happened. I still can do one if that's something that you guys want to see, but I've only recently been diagnosed as ADHD, so I don't know, I feel like a diagnosis story is kind of the way to go, you know? So I've been talking about autism for nearly 6 years now, and I've learned a lot about myself, a lot about autism, and a lot about the way that autism is viewed. But throughout this entire time that I have been talking about being autistic, there has been one thing which people have brought up to me time and time again. Every single time I talk about it, and every single time I go and present somewhere, I always get the same comment, and it's, you don't look autistic. Autistic people aren't like you. You're too bubbly and loud and talkative for an autistic person. How are you able to blank if you're autistic? Now, for a long time, and still to a point, I thought that these people were just being quite silly and quite uneducated. Because as I always say, you've met one autistic person, you meet one autistic person. We are all as unique and beautiful and individual as anyone else in the world, and a diagnosis doesn't change that. Autism cannot be defined by one singular stereotype. But recently, I've discovered that to an extent, some of these people were on the right track. That maybe some of the things that these people have brought up isn't necessarily not being autistic, but maybe it's something else. Maybe it's because of something else. My mind is my mind, and I've always been a really firm believer in our minds not being reduced down to one singular label. However, perhaps at times there's reasons for these labels. Reason our minds act in certain ways, perform in certain ways. Because I've discovered recently that some of the ways that my mind works isn't necessarily the way that an autistic mind works. It's the way that another labeled mind works, which, although it has been a part of my life for just as long as autism has been, I've only been aware of it for a small amount of time. And that label is ADHD. I have never even slightly considered the fact that I could have ADHD, probably for the same reason that people also think that I couldn't be autistic, because of stereotype. In my head, ADHD was like Tigger, loud and bouncy and crazy. I'm literally just describing myself here, hang on. ADHD to me was a young boy running rampant around the room, jumping off walls, practically going crazy on red cordial. ADHD was a complete inability to focus and a complete inability to sit still. ADHD to me was all of these stereotypes that we've been told that ADHD is. And I realized that my idea of ADHD was the same people's idea of what autism is. Poor stereotypes that actually involve nothing to do with the actual diagnosis. None of that is me. None of that was me, particularly as a child. I was the exact opposite. But it wasn't until I got older that I realized that something else maybe was going on. I knew I was autistic, and I was comfortable in that identity. I understood what autism meant, I understood what it meant for me, and I understood the way that my brain works, and that it was an autistic brain working. And it was something that I was comfortable in. It was something that I was settled in. It was an identity that I agreed with. But I always still kind of felt like maybe there was something else. I wasn't sure what that was until my psychologist told me, hey kid, you've got ADHD. When I got my diagnosis, part of me was confused because once again I did not think at all that I had this, and the other part of me was relieved because the same way that I felt when I got my autism diagnosis, I felt like I fit in a little bit more. I felt like the puzzle pieces were kind of starting to work out where their places were. And it was pieces that I hadn't even realized were missing until I was shown them. Once I got my diagnosis, I started to research it a little bit more and I started to kind of work out what this meant. The good thing is, this time I wasn't scared of this diagnosis. When I got my autism diagnosis, it was terrifying. I was scared, I didn't know what it meant, I didn't know what I was going to become, I didn't know what my life was going to be. Now, I'm already well aware that who I am is exactly who I am, and nothing changes that. Wording, diagnosis, labels don't change anything. So I was excited and I was intrigued and I was ready to look into what this meant, because it then meant that I was able to get further help and support. It meant that I was able to find a better identity. And as I started researching and as I started looking at real symptoms and real traits rather than the stereotypes that I had thought of, I realized, whoa, this makes a whole lot of sense. ADHD isn't Tigger. ADHD isn't a child running rampant around a room on red cordial. ADHD is not a child that cannot pay attention and cannot focus and cannot sit still. That's not what ADHD is. Saying that about someone who has ADHD would be the same as saying to an autistic person that they must have extremely poor communication skills or that they must all be math geniuses. That's not the way it is. It's a stereotype, and like most stereotypes, it's wrong. ADHD for me means that my executive functioning is really, really poor. ADHD for me means that I'm very forgetful. ADHD for me means that my mind is quite scattered sometimes, and sometimes I can really struggle to focus on specific tasks unless it's something which I absolutely love and I'm extremely interested in, which is where autism comes in. ADHD for me means that I can be quite messy and quite disorganized. ADHD for me means that I will get so excited about starting a specific task and then completely forget about it in 2 seconds. ADHD for me means that I'm energetic and I'm creative and I'm inventive. It means that my hyperfocus is better than just about anyone. If I have a task that I want to focus on, I can do it better than anyone. I never necessarily thought as ADHD and autism being interlinked. I never thought that there were things which could kind of go together. I don't know why, that was just my mindset. But something that I have discovered is that it's not actually as odd and as rare as I would have expected. In fact, up to 70% of autistic people also have ADHD. This is still such a completely new journey to me, and I'm still learning about it and myself each and every single day. But unlike my autism diagnosis when I first received it, it's not something that I'm scared of, because now I know it's something that always has been a part of me, just like autism has been. And just like autism, it's something that with the right help and with the right support and with the right understanding, I'm gonna make it my superpower. I plan on making a lot more videos about ADHD. This is a part of my life just as much as autism is, and I want to be able to make videos about it, and I want to be able to share my experiences and help other people that have the same thing. It is something that I'm still learning about, so it's obviously not going to take as much place on this channel as autism is, but I do want to talk about it, and the more that I learn about it, the more I'm going to talk to you guys about it. If you guys have any ADHD specific videos that you want me to do, let me know. Anyway, that's me. And that's the video for this week. If you guys are watching this video because you just got an ADHD diagnosis or an autism diagnosis or whatever diagnosis, or maybe you're just watching it because you're subscribed to my channel, hi. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do. That'll be really cool. If you want to, I don't mind. I mean, like, it'll be cool, but anyway. The most important thing that I want you to remember is that who you are is exactly who you're supposed to be, and no diagnosis and no label changes that. You have always been this way, you always will be this way, and you have the ability to make it your superpower. Be proud of who you are, because you were put on this earth for a reason, and all of these gifts and all of these talents and all of these labels that you have are all a part of that. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you guys are staying kind to yourself. Make sure you guys are staying kind to other people. Make sure you guys are staying hydrated and wearing your mask when you go outside, because once again, please, I want to see Harry Styles this year. If you guys do want to learn a little bit more about ADHD, I have posted some videos over on TikTok and a few Instagram posts as well. So I'll probably be talking about it more there at the moment, just until I kind of start to understand it more myself. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.